So that's basically the basic idea on tonic herb. Yeah, so like a tea, like you make any tea, you take your spring dragon, for example, you steep it like you would, and then in a blender, you put in your other ingredients, your coconut oil, your herbs, your sea salt, your honey or your stevia, maybe some maca, some cacao, make a hot chocolate. Like what they're basically doing here. Those are tonic elixirs. And then once your tea is done, you pour the tea in the blender, whip it up, and now you have an amazing coffee replacement. Or if you do coffee, again, this is actually my favorite recommendation to combine with coffee because it helps balance out that hyperstimulatory effect. Upgrade itself being bulletproof. It's really, ultimately, it's probably just a difference of the variety of coffee, where that coffee is being produced. Do you guys actually have coffee, or you just have the coffee replacement? So that's not actually coffee. So it's a form of elixir that you can use to replace coffee. And one thing about coffee is that it's a really powerful herb. Coffee's an herb, right? But it's not a tonic herb. It's not something designed to do every day. And so people develop these really serious addictions to it because it helps them get up and go. But their battery pack has been so depleted, and the stimulation from coffee is actually hyper stimulating adrenaline and cortisol, so they get up. But it's basically just this thing that's going on. Yeah, yeah. So the best replacement I can think of is starting to create cacao elixirs. So raw chocolate. Cacao, ginseng, ginger. There you go. Cacao, ginseng, ginger. That's a great starter right there. And then also there's a product called Dandy Blend, which is really good because it has a coffee-esque kind of flavor. Coffee thing. Okay. Oh, the actual product. Oh, right on. Yeah, yeah. No. Yeah, I in there, but okay, there you go. Right there. Yep. So no, so yeah, great. They actually have products. They actually have formulated products that kind of do it all for you.
Yeah. It gives the person the actual great flavor that they're looking for. That sort of like roasted aroma without being too herby, rooty like the other materials we find out. Plus, again, it's actually its own pre-made tonic for having compounds like ashwagandha. It's actually got a really good stabilizer in our adrenal stress yeast blend. So the coffee fix encapsulates and captures the ability to start regeneration and bring that actual adrenal complex to start being nutrified a little bit more effectively.
So you're getting a source of energy, kind of like upright chi or whatever you might call it, just like a little like a boost, but it's not pushing the button so hard. So you're actually getting restorative effects over time, but you're also getting that kind of psychosomatic feeling too when you sip the coffee. A lot of it's psychological. So that helps too. What he's talking about, and these guys are geniuses here. They could actually show you how to use the product and create something that's going to work for you and your husband.
Yeah, I got like 18 products over I don't know what the heck I'm
doing. You gotta let us know. We can set things up at all. We're going to be doing another build your own tonic latte class on a Saturday next month. So you'll be able to come in, literally dial in if you're looking for hormone balance or metabolic enhancement or what you're trying to develop. Off the menu, you can actually develop your own personalized one. So look forward to that coming up next month.
There you go.
I got some more.
Nothing?
Yeah. What's your criteria for spring water? What do you look for?
That was a good question. Ultimately, I'm looking at TDS, which is total dissolved solids. So one thing going on with spring water, definitely going on with well water, is you want to be aware of a high mineral content, specifically hard minerals. So another way you can find that out too, I would do the TDS meter because that, you're basically looking at the most ideal is like 50 and below. That's like
TDS?
really, yeah, TDS. That's like really, really good. But the like really extreme would be like when you start to get like 250, 300. That's pretty high. Now, also another thing that I've been thinking about lately is this whole acid alkaline thing. Is that you can actually alkaline test it, like get a pH strip or a pH meter that gives you how alkaline the water is. Not because alkaline water is really great, but it allows you to kind of get an idea of how much calcium is in the water. Calcium is the most alkaline mineral, but the thing you don't want is excessive calcium in your spring water because that can feed what's called calcification. Basically like hardening of the tissues, calcium that builds up in our joints and our arteries. We don't want that. So if out of the spring, if the water is, I believe anywhere from like 7.5, 7.9, definitely above that, then be wary. That's too much. Actually, natural spring water should be technically a little more acidic. Like all the best water I've had is between 5.5 to 6.5. Seems counterintuitive, but it tends to have more hydrogen present in that water and not as much or not excessive calcium. So that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at. Other people might have other criteria or other things like that. Personally, that kind of feels pretty appropriate for me.
Yeah,
but
we were using what's that outfit from Arkansas?
The Mountain Valley Spring.
Yeah. It seemed like it was all somewhere around 200.
Yeah, well, Mountain Valley Spring is a really amazing upgraded water. What I really like about them is that it instantly, if you're coming from any kind of thing coming out of the tap, even any kind of filter on it, to upgrade to auto shipping to Mountain Valley Spring is like, whoa, that's powerful. But then you can upgrade to like, I think there's Palomar water. There's the other one, Castle Rock, that comes from Mount Shasta. Castle Rock is like.
We bought some. I don't know what California is like. Whoa.
Oh, and we recently discovered the Icelandic fjord water from the had a really long range word that had a big volcanic explosion that they have up there, where the molten salt is actually clean and set.
Wow.
So gorgeously clean, clear, beautiful water.
What is that?
Called SNO. You'll find it in a clear bottle with a red label. We love those guys for the fact that they've done both a sparkling and a still water. TDS is like 7.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Are you familiar with completed water?
Yes. I'm familiar with deuterium oxide, which is a radioactive.
This is the deuterium completed
Deuterium.
water that Dr. Tom Cowan, the rest of the Western Price Studios,
Okay.
and he actually likes it.
It's a system.
And my husband would have used it. Now it's just really another shipment because we really control different.
Okay. Do you know what the principles of that system are? Like, is it like an alkaline
It's a very
type
small
of?
percentage of deuterium in our regular H2O water.
Yeah.
Very small percentage of that. I can remember it. And the site is dancing with water. That's the site.
Okay.
And there's an article in there about this. That's kind of extensive.
So it's basically like it's able to. It's basically radioactive fiber. That's why when you say deuterium, I'm like treated. Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept.
Okay. See, here's the thing I want to say about spring water. To me, philosophically, it pretty much comes back down to this: is that anything coming out of the tap, I don't care what kind of filter machine you have on it, nothing. There's no filter that I am aware of that's ever been discovered that can completely get out all the radioactive particulates in our environment, especially under recent circumstances. Not even Fukushima. We're talking about like Chernobyl and 86. So this is very present in our environment, and not to mention one other fact about water that is lost on most of the water scientists, because there's, although I love them, the left brain is too scientific. Water is a very mystical kind of a thing. What do I mean by that? This is what I mean. It's a storage container for all the information that it comes in contact with. If you want to get in tune with an environment, with an ecosystem, better than just eating the wild food of that ecosystem, go to the spring and drink the water that's coming out of the natural spring. It's not a stream water. It's literally coming out of the womb of that environment, because that water has literally gone through its natural geological filtration, the hydrological system. So what I mean is that it just naturally filters out as it rises through the geology and then comes out of a spring. It's naturally filtered out. And it also is literally supporting all the life of that environment. So for me, this is 100% a spiritual and philosophical perspective I'm giving. If that doesn't vibe, that's cool. But for me personally, I've experienced the difference of drinking spring water and then going back to some kind of alkaline machine, something on the tap, and it's almost immediate. Even really good filters, which I'm not saying don't have a filter. I'm just saying that there is a distinct difference in the taste, in the viscosity, the density of that water, the way that I feel. Like when I drink spring water, I realize that I've never been hydrated in my whole life. That's the main thing. Because now I realize I don't have this overwhelming thirst. But every time I drink filtered water, I feel excessively thirsty, more than I did before I drank it.
And I guess one of the interesting principles on what we talked about is the difference that actually goes in between listening to an actual symphony orchestra perform in a natural amphitheater setting and hearing the vibration of the music actually as it occurs in your body. And when you can play the exact same song in your car off stereo speakers and go, yeah, it doesn't feel the same.
It doesn't feel the same.
It doesn't vibrate the same. It doesn't move the same.
But back to your.
Yeah, I don't know if you're local, but over in Carlsbad.
Carlsbad, they have a.
People go crazy constantly, and they keep wasting price.
You're talking about the Carlsbad water dispenser?
Water. Don't call it spring water, it's seawater.
So do I.
It's an
exaggeration. How do you say it?
It's a marketing ploy.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so we do a lot. I do a lot of this. Geologically speaking, Carlsbad, in its actual elevation to the groundwater table, has found a spot where the surface runoff has actually hit a breakpoint and is coming out of quote unquote the ground. That is not the same as an artesian water source, where the levity of the water from deep within the earth is actually being brought up through micro fissures, cracking, faulting, any of those processes. So no matter what, just like the idea of filtering tap water, the superficial runoff to the point where it's being collected is actually not the same. Yes, there is filtration. Yes, 10 feet or more of water, you can go from using the restroom to having it clean enough. It's not going to hurt you. But the idea is you really should not be drinking water that's being seeped because of hydrocarbons, different types of runoff. We know that holy rain in the drain concept for the dolphins isn't really working out so well right now. And the big issue with the Carlsbad water is that they have a slight misnomer in the concept of water purification, geologic processing that's not correct. So again, it's one of those where people like it. It does seem fresh. It does seem clean. They are doing a great filtration process there. It doesn't hold its pH for very long. That's one thing I do know about it. And I just said on Palomar.
Okay. So you're recommending in this scenario Palomar water.
Palomar is the best bottled source that I've been able to find and the easiest for personal spring hunting data. So really, and again, both of the ball solids are really good. That's amazing.
Yeah, now I can remember one.
Okay.
One of the big problems I have is with the rock.
Yeah.
Is I happen to have a child that has a want to know if they do this, if they're like some stuff that will keep their issue. So I like to stay away from the kale because I think you should cook kale, you should cook spinach, and the oxalate.
Well, the thing with oxalic acid is that it's come to my attention that I don't actually think that's a raw versus cooked issue because I haven't seen any real evidence. There's a few things that freak me out in this like oestrogens and cruciferous vegetables. That to me is completely exaggerated. When you hear about like stay away from kale if you have a thyroiditis or hypothyroid issue, to me that's totally out of context because if you look at the statistics on thyroid issues and then the ratio of people that actually eat vegetables, it doesn't add up, right? So I just want to put that out there. Now, the oxalic acid thing's interesting. I don't have I'm still exploring different perspectives. It's all perspective, right?
Well, decided is one of those that hit about 1 million people in the population. So obviously we don't know lots about it, but it will almost make you want to not live it. You want to pay for that.
Okay, so your main concern in this scenario is the
if I go and I start doing this, I'm not aware of any of that information.
Right.
So I'm afraid
yes, I totally hear you. So here my immediate remedy for that is a spinach, kale, a few others, but those are like the dominant oxalate containing ones. So now you know that. So moving into some of the lesser like romaine lettuce, cucumber, celery. Cucumber and celery together as a juice and as solids are really, really important combination because the cucumber has a lot of silica, which is actually interesting interwoven into this whole like oxalic issue because oxalates are pretty much like mostly what you hear about is that thing called kidney stones, right? So kidney stones again are a formation ultimately of calcification. Silica is one of the minerals that opposes calcification. But what I ultimately want to say to this, and maybe this relates overall to a lot of what I'm talking about, skip some of, if you have an issue with, let's say, a raw food like kale or spinach, don't make that the whole menu board. That's just, okay, those two things, I don't deal with those right now. You have a whole cornucopia of things you can choose from. When it comes to greens, though, and getting it into your son, your daughter, go to green powders. Because ultimately, what we really want to do here, raw food, I preach about raw food, I talk about it, but only as a segue. I think maybe I should have segued a little more into this during the presentation. Is that we want to get to a place where we're putting in more powerful and concentrated foods like superfoods. So what am I saying? I'm saying things like spirulina, chlorella, blue-green algae, and green superfood powders. Those things, if you can get those into her, those are going to be infinitely more profound ultimately. And then finding like fiber sources like.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention on just that exact topic, one of the issues with oxalic acid over solubilization from oxalic acid, it's usually a hydrogen and methylation depletion system that actually allows it to build up other conditions. So things like megahydrates, stabilized hydrogen, are actually really good at converting any acid compound that a person is actually suffering from back into hydroxyl groups and allowing for homeostasis and stabilization inside muscle tissues to occur. So MSM, PMG, megahydrate, those three in combination do a fantastic job at letting the body go back to processing so there isn't an over secretion or buildup of those tissues. And that can help a lot. I still don't think you should be eating a ton of oxalate containing greens. Right. Mustard, again, go back to spirulina, things that just have a very good level of non-function, but still have a ton of chlorophyll in them, will help a lot with that.
So what you're saying is that combination is going to help the methylation process, ultimately the detoxification process, correct, to allow everything to circulate in and out of the body.
and that will balance the cell's lack of it's actually a hyperallergenic sort of sensitivity to oxalate that creates the same reaction if you got diabetes, if you got a snake, anything of that nature. It's the same style of poison. Your body just has a way of flushing. It doesn't leave the body.
That's a really great point about all this, is that a lot of times allergies, and you're alluding to, a lot of times allergies are formed or allergenic reactions are formed because our body either reaches a threshold limit of certain over excess of something. So this is when like you excessively do spinach, or you excessively do something that has a compound that your body just can't process or doesn't know how to eliminate. And so that's why we have to get into a place where, that's why I think colon hydrotherapy is like kicking in again, because that's one of the modes of elimination. You have 4 channels of elimination. And so if you can address that in your daily life through things like chlorella, which helps bind on to stuff, and then pull it through this whole tubing system. You have your respiration, which is, pushing toxins in your respiratory tract out, your skin, perspiration, and then urination and filtration to the kidneys. Those 4 things, and basically, that's a long, I don't want to overwhelm everyone with so much more information, but I think ultimately that's kind of the point here too, is that you could simplify a lot of it by understanding that if you overeat anything and you don't have enough variety, that's why I like the rainbow picture, is like have enough colors of the rainbow in your diet. It allows you intuitively to spread out your variety of food. Right? For your daughter, I imagine that certain water-rich fruits would be really, I'm thinking of like seeded watermelon. Every fruit, by the way, should have seeds, viable seeds. If you're getting like seedless oranges or seedless grapes or seedless watermelons, that's literally a genetically modified food by definition. Just want to point that out. But fruits are amazing. I can't. So something that could be talked about more in depth. I definitely do a lot more in depth in my book. Also, my online education program, the Holistic Health Mastery Program, where I go extremely in depth. It's basically a 70 video curriculum with 40 bonus videos. It's an online holistic nutrition certification course. You can take one of these and check it out, see if it resonates. Yeah.
I got it in my refrigerator. I've only used it
once. Yeah, I mean, typically, like,
I don't really like the taste of it.
Well, it's a great cooking oil. It's great for cooking. Ultimately, with cooking oils, by the way, one of the biggest issues metabolically is all this like vegetable oil, soybean oil, all these fake synthetic canola oil, all that stuff is literally silting people up from top to bottom. That's one of the biggest problems happening. And there's a like 51-day half-life on a lot of these oils. So say for example, you get off French fries and you're like 49 days off, right? But you're like, oh my God, I just want one. And then you have it again. Now you just started that back over, and that stuff sticks in your body. So this is the subtraction by addition, is replacing those cooking oils with coconut oil or ghee.
Now I got a great coconut oil.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. See, we all have our thing, right? So again, it's like, okay, what's the best upgrade possible? That's pretty cool. And then I do it in tonics. I like it in tonics. Those are really great ways to do it. Cacao ghee combination is like your own medicinal chocolate.
Where are you at with olive oil?
Here's where I'm at with olive oil. I think real olive oil, cold pressed, extra virgin olive oil that's not split with canola oil, that's not split with other olive oil from some other factory or some sewage system, which is really weird if we get deep into it. The olive oil industry is like corrupted. But really good olive oil is amazing.
That's Bariani?
Yeah. I think Bariani, as far as I know, is a really good brand.
reality.
Yes.
Yeah,
That stuff is unbelievable. But,
$3?
yeah, it's like $30 bottle. It's like a fine wine type of quality. And you know, olive oil to me, like olive oil is very, very powerful. It has a compound called oleorutin, which is that main active compound in olive leaf extract. It has antiviral capabilities, but also it works on your hormones. It works on helping you preserve your growth hormones and inhibit them from becoming steroidal estrogens. We call it estradiol, which actually that's like kind of estrogen dominance is when our good hormones flip over into bad hormones. It's called aromatization. Long subject, big subject, but basically one of the issues with that is all the rancid oils, all the plastics, and yeah, I mean, I could go into that, but that's a big one. Removing plastic from your drinking water, your liquids, all that is a profound difference that will be made in your life, especially if you're looking at how to lose weight. I want to touch on this because I'm feeling like this is an area that is going to be really relevant. Here's how you lose weight. You've heard all these weight loss things, yada yada yada. Here's how you do it. I told you that fat is like a storage container for toxins, right? You guys remember that part? Well, has anyone ever wondered what happens? Like, there's a condition called Syndrome X, metabolic syndrome. Well, interesting thing that happens is that when your body is overloaded with chemical toxicity, your body will actually create more fat deposits to store those toxins. Because your body doesn't work in a hierarchy of preference. It works in a hierarchy of survival. So if your preference is like, I want a six-pack, but your body's like, dude, we need to survive. It's going to start storing more fat because the fat's the only thing that keeps those toxins from your blood. And once those toxins get into your blood, you might have a Herxheimer syndrome, like a healing crisis. You might go into like shock mode. And that's really important to understand because people are confused about weight loss. We're being told all kinds of cockamamie nonsense to sell you more weight loss programs. The real deal is that you need to actually cleanse out the environmental toxins, A, by changing out what you eat, B, your home environment, the volatile organic compounds that are off-gassing, off the paint and the carpet and everything, being aware of all that. If you can, if you're in an economic place where you can actually start upgrading your sheets, you can definitely upgrade all your toiletries, your shampoo, your toothpaste, your soaps, your hand wash, your deodorant, start upgrading all those things, your detergent. What are we washing our clothes with? Is it chemicals? Right? This got me kicking in right now. If we start to replace all those or cosmetics, women get abused with cosmetics. If we start to upgrade all of that, or to realize, hey, you know, I probably don't need to be covering myself up. Men actually like it when women don't do that anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, if you start to go down that path, all this stuff will start to remove itself over time. But I think that part right there gets left out of most of this conversation, and that, to me, in my opinion, is what's going on from a weight loss and detox perspective. I think did I miss something? Was there something else to that? No, we were talking about olive oil. Right? That's my thing on olive oil.
Let me just put this out for Joseph. I mean, how about the tobacco oil?
They're local. They do source here. I don't think they bring all to me the seasons have been good these last few years, so they haven't had to import. They're not doing extreme cold pressing. I know that's an issue. So there is some concern there. I'm not familiar too much with too many producers in that area. I like her Temecula for going local. The avocado oil. They do a really good job at producing. And then I use
Sheridan. Don't use the avocado oil. Well, he's coming from a very, very whole food perspective, which makes perfect sense. I know James. I was on the panel with James that weekend actually.
Yeah, I know.
And, James is amazing. And he has obviously he comes from a very commonsensical background, so I can't argue that. But at the same time, I can't not argue it either. You know, it's kind of a lot of this is choose your own adventure story too. You know, like if it makes sense to you, great. If what James said makes way more sense to you than getting avocado oil, then I would go that direction. But I would also say this, that avocado oil is probably good for you.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Without getting dogmatic, like that's my only thing. Like I don't want to get my mind wrapped up into some kind of dogma about something if it can be beneficial either way. That's my thing.
Where do you get these?
They're online, but they're expensive. Sometimes you even have to ship from the production facility.
It is, yep. There's a few websites like longevitywarehouse.com. There's chocolatetree.com. I know they have it as their thing. I'm sure they probably do. I know through Longevity Warehouse they definitely have it. The shipping kind of stuff. But.
What do you recommend for our prostate?
That's so funny. For prostate, well, okay. Here's the funny thing about prostate issues. The old story on that was testosterone was causing your prostate enlargement. Who's heard that? Right?
I've heard that.
Yeah. That was like a whole long thing, like really, really echoed. And then going through all the research on hormones and aromatization, I came to find out that it's not actually free testosterone. This is the whole thing. Like we just put everything together and call it something. Testosterone is not just one thing. When they do the hormone panel testing, if you ever do it or anyone actually gets hormones tested for testosterone, you have to ask them to get free testosterone and get dehydrotestosterone tested, DHT, because what appears to be causing the issue is a lack or a depletion of free testosterone and an elevation of dehydro or DHT testosterone. Now, basically what that means is that your free testosterone converts into estrogen. That's the big thing about hormones in our world right now. Plastic is the number one estrogen mimicker. It's the number one problem with estrogen inflation, hormone issues, in my opinion, is plastic. So from that perspective, that's number one. But let me digress off that because I could go on a tangent about that. I want to get back to the point. The point is, reishi mushroom has been shown to actually lower DHT. Now, what's funny about that too is that the original research, I actually had a friend of mine years ago come to me and say, she was giving it to her dad who had a prostate issue, right? And she was like, I heard reishi mushroom lowers testosterone. I was like, what? And then I looked into it. I'm like, wait, no. It apparently is lowering DHT because reishi mushroom has also been corroborated with being very beneficial for prostate issues. So now you piece this stuff together and you're like, oh, how interesting. That actually appears to be the case. So reishi mushroom is the first thing I recommend. Beyond that, I recommend a safe and just kind of just basic methylation, a hormone type of cleansing protocol. There's different ones out there. Joseph definitely is super knowledgeable, especially from the methylation perspective.
Thermic concentration, really amazing for being anti-inflammatory.
It's an inflammatory response, yeah, right.
And it's usually a food allergenic reaction that's creating it at the end of the process of your digestion. So something going in that doesn't have a reaction anywhere else in the body is getting that tiny gland at the very end of the process and going on and maybe being concentrated because it's actually a toxin the body is trying to flush. And so the reactivity of that particular area is hypersensitive, and we just concentrate things like citric acid, stearate, whatever byproducts that the body isn't converting to the other places in the dehydration, just the lack of fiber, all of those other things in the mechanical process. You don't want to be, taking the daily doser with a bunch of pancakes inside your colon. That's never going to work out well. To get your water in, get your oils in, cut down omega-6. Really, really important during that process. But again, the concept of the testosterone creating condition, I've seen deer antler and pine pollen actually really rapidly drop PSA values. Because you're finally getting through testosterone in there, and when it starts activating on the meds.
That's a brilliant point about the agitation from food allergies. I swear, I think food allergies are the root cause of basically almost everything. I mean, behaviorally and just like symptomatically, if you cut out the food that you are allergic to, not even just like boom, 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 those are the major dominant ones, but just being aware of, you eat a food, being aware of how it makes you feel, and then removing it for a little bit of time and then seeing how you feel in its absence. Everything's an inflammatory response. It's a simplification. So if you can kind of get intuitive about how things make you feel and then start rearranging those, I think that's really powerful.
How about carcinogenesis too?
Yeah, he just brought that up actually. That's a powerful anti-inflammatory. Yeah. I would also probably put, this is a whole different angle on it, but I'd probably put yin-focused herbs like Shizandra, Hoshu Wu. Those are two, like Shizandra is like pretty much just really powerful for everything, especially for men's issues. Shizandra is really touted as a female beauty herb, that and lycium together. But what's interesting is that those are both yin-focused herbs, and men in our culture need more yin essence. Lycium, goji berry, is actually spermogenic. So it helps your body create more sperm cells, right? We have about 40-50% infertility rate right now going on. So our focus is like, okay, how do we get more androgenic? How can we get more anabolic, like the pine pollen, deer antler? And I think that's great, but there's a certain point when that becomes too much, like too anabolic. Like if you have a cancer, don't do that. This cancer cells feed on anabolic substances because cancer is an anabolic thing. It's a growth. It grows. So you got to be careful about that. If you have a cancer,
Really boosting.
like a deer antler, a pine pollen, something, because cancer again has a hormonal side of it, which is basically estrogen dominance. So anything that can grab onto the testosterone that would normally make you testosterone is normally a good thing, but again, the aromatization situation is that you have what's called cytochrome P450 aromatase. Yeah, and that enzyme basically grabs good hormones and then brings it over and turns them into estrogen. I was kind of talking about that before, and that's what's happening. So you got to get clear if that's the situation.
And then there's a therapy where people are taking a bunch of DHEA and not testing the hormone reaction afterwards to see what's actually increasing. Because of that whole concept of aromatization, right? You might be sucking down a ton of DHEA, and it literally is just feeding the estrogen stockpile and burning the furnace even faster.
Yeah.
So that's a definitive thing.
So I want to finish that thought for anyone that's left hanging on this. Is that whenever this is what I've evolved to this perspective over time is that for me I don't have to worry. Realistically, I don't have to worry. But for most people, if you're going to do something like a deer antler, pine pollen, pine pollen tincture. It's basically plant-based testosterone. So if you're going to do something like that, you want to apply it with an aromatase inhibitor. Something like what ones do you guys have? Oh, about like the nettles and the passion flower, right? Yep. This is something I actually take. I take this product. It has nettles and passion flower. Passion flower being my absolute favorite flower, most beautiful flower, and has really specific hormone balancing effects. So actually, I'm glad you brought this product up because whether your goal is to do any like hormone boosting or not, this product right here is one of those things that you can take daily. It is going to help you regulate your hormonal symptoms, your hormone cycles.
So somebody that already had cancer was treated for, like, you know, what's the habit, I don't know what the exact. Is the reishi mushroom is still safe in America?
Yeah, it's absolutely, and I guarantee it's 100% safer than anything they're going to eat outside or in or outside the hospital.
There's the Hoshu, I know that's one of the products.
Yeah, I just mentioned that. Yeah, Hoshu is it's very specific for building the blood. It's very specific for the kidneys and the adrenals, and it's that restorative, conservative energy of the body that very few of us actually have left, unless we actually actively go back to building that. That's a yes. That's an absolute yes. Yeah, reishi mushroom, schizandra, and Hoshu are three really important herbs for the overall situation. Yeah.
So the good thing is because when you're healthy, it's one thing, and when you're trying to.
So let me address that. I know this comes up. Here's a really good way to simplify that. None of this has anything to do with pharmaceuticals. We know that, but what I'm getting at is that pharmaceutical consciousness is based on isolated compounds that may have came out of passion flower. For example, there's a compound called chrysin, which is the estrogen blocking compound that comes out of passion flower. Pharmaceuticals take chrysin, isolate it, and then actually use that as a bodybuilding tool to inhibit estrogen because, as we know, many bodybuilders shoot up, and we know what happens after 30, 40, 50 years. All that muscle turns into weight gain, right? We've all seen that example. That's estrogen flipping over, and that's why they do things like that. But what's been shown, this being one example of many, is that chrysin has some in a pharmaceutical form, is so steroidal powerful over time in its isolated form that it can flip over on you and become very damaging. So what do? We take the whole herb and put it in extract it, but the whole herb. So for example, passion flower and nettle, that's what you get. It's just in an alcohol. Wait, this isn't even alcohol. This is alcohol. So it's in a diluted alcohol medium, meaning that it pulls out the fat and alcohol fractions, which are medicinal, and this will go right to your blood. But it's the whole herb. Does that make sense? That's the most important part of this. It's the whole herb without being isolated. We're trying to really drive that point as much as possible. And all these herbs, by the way, have been shown. This is why they're even here. Is that they've been demonstrated over time to be useful every single day. There are certain situations, I don't want to confuse you, but there are certain situations where like astragalus you don't do if you're like sick. Because then it can actually, it's not even that big of a concern, but it's one of those things that you don't do when you're sick. But if you're in a normal bill of health, you can test these things out and pretty much be free to do so. But if you're in a healing crisis, there's certain herbs, specifically, let me just say medicinal mushrooms, just for sake of simplicity, that you can pretty much push the button on all day. And to prove that point, if you go to Japan and you look at their cancer therapy, they have been including shaga mushroom, maitake, reishi, shiitake, number of other turkey tail, to actually what's the word I'm looking for? To basically combat chemotherapy, radiation damage done from cancer. That's basically what's going on in their cancer therapy, not here, of course. We have to do the education and do that ourselves. But that's what they've been doing for a long time with good results. Not that I believe in conventional cancer therapy. Does that make sense? Okay. I feel like I'm dancing around a lot of different
Well, I
things.
think the word
You guys
herb,
are sitting here just like very patient and focused, which I appreciate. I just hope, ultimately, I want to make sure that I'm providing you guys value in insight in some way. What I'm saying is able to give you guys one gemstone that you can take away with you. I could obviously do this all day long, but ultimately, I want you guys to take one thing that really you can install into your life that's going to make a difference.
well, I think the word herb is something to me, because I just think like basil or oregano.
Oh,
So
that's
it's like,
good.
I don't know what the heck this stuff is.
Right. So those are basically just like those are nice little fun little condiments. Yeah, but those aren't really medicinal. Rosemary, yeah, okay. Yeah, right. Or when you concentrate it into like an oregano oil, then it's like that's powerful stuff. So some of those herbs you do. For example, let me give you a context. If someone has a cold, reishi mushroom's great, but it's probably unless you do a hyper dosage or your immune system is just down. Instead of doing the reishi, you're going to do something like an oregano oil, garlic extract, and olive leaf extract. Right? Those are going to boost your immune system up, and then hopefully get you back into normality. Now, once you're kind of good, then you step away from those because if you keep pushing the button, they can stimulate your immune system too much and cause you to go into the like too much of the stimulation. Then you step away, and this stuff here is designed for everyday use. And it's not designed to actually stimulate you. Ultimately, what it's designed is to fortify your immune system. If you have an invincible immune system, you are not susceptible to getting sick. I mean, I have to make this point to every single audience I talk to is that we are programmed with this whole idea that getting sick is normal. Like you don't see a bear sneezing in the wilderness. They don't blow their nose next to the pot cooking like leaves. We got to get back to a little bit of like, okay, what's natural and normal? And getting sick is not really, it's not natural or normal, and it doesn't have to be an option. I just put that out there for you to wrap your mind around, because ultimately, like Napoleon Hill says in his book Think and Grow Rich, what you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. So ultimately, all this is just really awesome tools for you to get to a place in your mind and your psychology where you are not allowing the programs of weakness that we are pretty much being forced upon us to influence your lifestyle. Hopefully that helps. Yes, sir.
Food combining. Fruit, separate from vegetables. Where are you at with that?
I have a lot of that in my book. I broke that down really well in my book, I think. I think food combining, short answer, food combining is really important. It's a little different for everyone. If you're a blood type O, this is where blood type actually has validity in my eyes. I broke down my whole thing on blood typing too that I've never heard explained anywhere. But it's basically like if you're blood type O, you produce more hydrochloric acid, your blood doesn't thicken up easily. So that's why they say like blood type O's are meat eaters. It's like, well, they can handle meat better than anyone else because they can incinerate it. They produce more hydrochloric acid. So they can burn stuff up no problem. Right? Now blood type A's, for example, have thin blood by nature. And it clogs up very quickly, especially in the presence of fat. This is when the fat carbohydrate thing becomes a little more relevant. And so they actually have to be pretty much, if not entirely, like vegetarian. They can't really process that. And then the food combining thing becomes more of an issue when you go down those more of the hybrid blood type. Blood type O being the original blood type. So, anyways, I can't even go into the whole food combining thing.
I think one of the interesting things that Ronnie was talking about earlier, a lot of times that people don't do is they eat something, feel bad, and then eat it again. And they just go, yogurt granola is the way I start my day, or a cup of, cereal
They'll never feel the effect. Just like this whole gluten, we've all heard all the minutiae on gluten. From my perspective, this is my thing on gluten. Everybody by default is reactive to gluten. A lot of people are insulated from their sensitivities. They're not sensing what's happening. Most people have brain fog as a normality. Right? You don't know what health is if you've never been healthy. So you get habitually used to your circumstances, just like building a business. If someone is baseline, if your financial blueprint is $2,000 a month, let's just take it there, right? And that's like you expect that. That's your expectancy rate, your standards for life, as Tony Robbins would say. Then that's where you're always going to kind of hit that. But if now you raise that, you start to notice new things, starts to reach a new level, right? Similar idea here is that we're not noticing the reactions going on in the body. We're just used to it, right? But once you start to remove these things from the body, you become you basically, here's what this whole living foods does for you. It makes you more sensible by getting back into sensitivity. And so once there was something coming up, you mentioned something that was super key. I know this is going to fit for some people. You may not do it today, may not do it tomorrow, but at one time in your life, it's going to click and it's going to reset.
Like a 2-day water fast.
Yeah, well, you can reset your metabolism if you have a digestive issue. Let's say gluten. I just brought gluten up. Why is that coming up? Well, that's one of the biggest antagonists to your intestinal lining. Leaky gut syndrome. That is a major issue. Diverticulitis, ulcerative colitis, all these names. It's all literally just a different thing going on in the same region, which is our digestive tract. That's where everything's really kind of made. That's where everything is taking place. Here's something you can do. You can fast on bone broth for 2 to 3 days. You can do that with ghee. Ghee is very important too for coating, the lining of the intestinal tract, and for helping kind of knit back, L-glutamine, for bringing back what happens with leaky gut is that there's like a wedging in the lining of your intestinal lining surface, and it widens up and opens. And stuff slips through. So you need to bring that back into, what's that? Yeah, bring it back.
Once it's inflamed, it's swollen.
Yeah. There's I'm just thinking of creative words. It doesn't matter. You bring it back. You close the gap, and then things start to change. Your digestion starts to change. Your cognitive focus starts to change. Because cloudy thinking has a lot to do with fermentation, right? And everything going on here. So I'm gonna say that one more time and leave it at that. You could, if you wanted to, fast. You could do a juice fast, which could literally just be a juice of cucumber, celery for the sodium and the potassium. So you have that balance. You have that really the electrolytical balance. You have your electrolytes. You could add in maybe green apple, ginger. If you feel really like, spice things up, maybe throw a little dash of cayenne every once in a while for entertainment. Or turmeric, there you go. Juicing turmeric is really powerful. But then also adding on top of that bone broth fasting. That's one of the animal things, by the way, I've come to realize is like we need a little bit of animal information at different points in our life. I think it's part of our buildup. And bone broth for me is one of those things that across the board is just very healing. I've never seen it not be healing for digestive issues. So I want to put that out there too.
72
hours. 3 days. You want the bones to almost get to the point where you can put the condition. Right. That shows that you're taking every bit of the silica, every bit of the connective cartilage, all of the gelatin, all the elastin, hydrogen, all those compounds that you can just go. Again, I just talked to the dogs. The dogs are much on belly to left of the rest of the party. Yeah. Really healing for them because they're usually getting all the stuff that's in the back of the dog. So
yeah.
So you're brave enough to leave it alone on that?
I do it on a crock pot. It's
Crockpot. That's how you really do it is on the Crockpot. Yeah. I wanna just put this out there is that in my program, again, this is an online course that's all video based. I know a lot of people, the book is basically predicated on the book, just me translating it through video-based education that's broken up. Each video is about 7 to 15 minutes approximately, where we go very in depth and everything that we're talking about and then some can be found on this course. I want to put that out there now. So this is an amazing resource that you have access to indefinitely. If you decide that this resonates and you want to get involved in it, you have complete access to all the videos up front. You can constantly reference them as much as you want. The book is designed to be a companion to it as well, and something that you can go through, a reference book that you can highlight. Every single thing we're talking about, by the way, literally every single thing that's been brought up here tonight is actually detailed in the book and broken down in the table of contents so you know where to find it and that kind of thing. So I just want to put that point out there if you're wanting to walk away with a resource that can continue to empower you moving forward. That's what that is all about. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking an Olympic health mastery course right now, and I've been learning for Ronnie for about a year now, and coming to talks and everything, and it's an amazing program. I mean, if you really want to dive in and really know this stuff, know why you're taking all this earth, and what you really can do to transform your life, I would highly recommend talking to Ronnie about it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Energized couple of hours, that's for sure.
80% of success in anything is just showing up. So thank you for showing up and staying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Good job.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, absolutely.
Did you ground food for food?
Yes, you can.
Imagine.
Typically outside under the sun though, because it what's the word? Magnifies, but it concentrates the energy of the sun, I believe. So it does have a conductive element to it. But ultimately, grass and sand and natural surfaces are really what you want. Yeah.
Anyone's interested in reading Ronnie's book?
Hey, man.
I was on the.
They're normally 40, but here's they're 30. Really? Oh, wow.
I don't know why.
No, they're not. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Back on it. Cool. Right. No, I want to help address that. And basically, for the respiratory issues, there's a number of things. I guess coconut oil is really important for respiratory. Okay. Do like coconut oil pulling. Okay, you do that every day. You're on that. Yeah. Nervous system issues.
Joseph, do you need this? Do you need this? Is it? Yeah. Is it? Is it ready?
So if I write down all the stuff I bought, I can put like how much it moves at the time.
15 minutes, get an hour. Why you don't shortchange yourself? What are you talking about?